to session 5, and we're looking at websites. It's digital, and we're looking at how websites can best support EV sales. Basically, how can dealers get the best out of the website when it comes to EV sales, after sales. And today we've got speaker Martin Dew. Martin is Digital Solutions Director at AutoWeb Design. And the panelists, we have Darren Ardron. He's Managing Director of Perry Motor Sales. And finally, we have James Curd, who's Operations Director at Eden Motor Group. Could you give them a warm welcome, please?
So, firstly, just want to thank Darren and James for being on this panel with me. It's a lot of time to give up, and it's a privilege for me to be able to take part in this. And thanks to Motor Trader and everyone for making this event happen. So, my name's Martin Dew from a company called AutoWeb Design. We're a web design agency. This audience are experts in how to run retail operations, selling cars, looking after sales. I'm not going to attempt to talk with any authority on those matters. The thing that I know about is how to use websites and digital marketing to feed your sales machines with good quality sales leads. And being that this is the EV Summit, I'm going to obviously be talking about electric vehicles. For those who don't know our business, what we're really all about is innovation and customer service. And this talk is going to be about some research that we've conducted as part of our innovation, specifically around EVs. There's not going to be a lot of numbers and charts and things, so a little bit of a change. What I really want people to be able to go away from this talk today with is actionable ideas on what can be done to make the most of the EV market that's there. I'll give you a little bit of a preview, I suppose, in terms of what's coming up. The 49% of consumers that want to buy EVs has been mentioned a couple of times today. That, if it's the same statistic that I saw, there was a Ernst & Young report in June of this year. The same report did say that price, vehicle range, etc., were factors to not buying. From our company's point of view, we're interested in our clients making profit. When I spoke to people about this 49% figure or this threshold of going over 50%, some people said, I don't believe that, that's ridiculous, no way, the infrastructure's not there, etc. So the point is, and I think what's coming up, is some people want to buy EVs and some people don't. I think, personally, that it's not so much the dealer's job to turn somebody who doesn't want to buy an EV, who has a very strong opinion, into an EV buyer. What my interest in is making sure that your dealership gets the EV market, gets your share of that EV market, and gets people to buy the EV from you if they already want to buy an EV. So, our research methodology, as you can see on the screen, there's a lot of research that comes out of the industry, and a lot of it is quantitative based, so based on numbers. So we put out a survey, we get different results, and we say X% of people want this, want that. And we do that kind of research as well. In fact, that is coming up. But we wanted to start off, because EV is so new and there's so many opinions, using a methodology called grounded theory. So we interviewed consumers who were drivers in the UK and asked them in an unstructured way, open-ended, about their experiences, desires, etc. when it comes to using car dealer websites to buy cars and with a particular focus on EVs. We then had a brainstorm session about the outcome of that to talk about, which led to a survey, and I'll show you the results of that later in the talk. And I guess what we're doing now is the final step of what's on the screen, which is analysing that, thinking of what the actions are. I can't go through all of the research. My email address is going to be on the last slide. If anybody wants a copy of it, just email me and I can send that across. So, from the interviews that we did, the unstructured interviews, we looked through all the transcripts, we put them into categories depending on what people were saying, using this grounded theory methodology. And we came up with this proposed model. Now, this isn't all of the factors that affect how somebody will use a car dealer website to buy an EV, but it's the ones that came up until we sort of stopped getting new data through, new information through rather. So cost, perceptions, preferences, experiences, and the search process. Now, I would argue that experience, cost, perceptions, and preferences are not things that are particularly within the control of a dealer, certainly not in a cost-effective manner. If you want to change the perception of the UK population, that to me appears to be the job of OEMs to come out with good advertising campaigns, good product, and governments to incentivize consumers to buy the vehicles, and I guess dealers need to be incentivized to sell them as well to make this all work. The search process, however, that is a key area that dealerships can have an impact on. I'll just go through, for a bit of a change, some of the actual real data that we got from this transcript. So talking about cost, consumers, when they talk about cost, it's generally the upfront cost or the ongoing. That can range from tax, road tax to charging. The upfront cost of purchase obviously is a big one. So currently, I do not believe I would consider an electric vehicle because they are too expensive to buy, is one of them. Another one says, I think if I were to look for another car today, I would want to see a comparison between the cost to run an electric car and a petrol car in real money terms. Not a simple thing to calculate, I understand, and we've already seen today differences in numbers there. Perceptions is a big one, and this is what I was alluding to earlier. Some people have a very, very negative perception about EVs. We heard lots of comments about the infrastructure, it's not going to get there. One person that I recall spoke about how the combustion engine was the best invention since sliced bread, etc. Why are we changing all of this? It doesn't actually matter. The point is that I'm trying to make here is it exists. So from what I've heard, they take an age to charge and charging ports are not always available. I've also heard that they don't hold a lot of charge, and as I personally do long car journeys, the last thing I want to do is have to pull over for an hour for its charge. Another person didn't consider electric yet due to current infrastructure. Electric is coming, so actually went the other way and bought a big V8 petrol before you can't get them anymore. Interesting thing about that is it's a perception that EVs are coming. Experiences. This can relate to either experiences with dealerships, experiences with dealer websites, or with EVs. So one person said, I will never buy a car without physically inspecting it again. Another person said the range was not reliable on the electric car. So experiences is a category. Preferences is about whether somebody already knows what vehicle they want or how they want to buy it. So some people know what car they want. Some people know what budget they have. Some people know exactly how they want to buy the car. A couple of quotes on the screen here. I won't read them all out, but again, it's down to some degree what they've done in the past as well. Some people want to lease cars, etc. So going back to that proposed model then, as I say, other than the search process, changing perceptions, changing experiences, very, very difficult to do. So we want to give suggestions to our clients and to you all here today about what can actually be done to make sure that you get a bigger slice of the EV market that's out there. So we did the same exercise within the search process, and we have 5 categories. What is the vehicle? That means basically what's available. That might sound extremely basic, but we'll come to that. How will I use the vehicle? So this is all to do with information on charging points, etc. Will the vehicle work? So what happens with aftercare and maintenance? When will I get the vehicle? Lead times. And search preferences. Do I like to buy online? Do I like to search online? Do I want to just go into a dealership? What I can say is there are people who just want to go into a dealership and not use a website. Fortunately for us as a web design agency, there's a large portion of people who want to either do both or entirely online to a lesser degree. So with all of that in mind, if you've been to one of our talks before, again, we've probably 6 years ago, I think the first time we spoke about website personalization. What this means is showing particular content to consumers based on who they are. This is something that's long established outside of automotive. I think within the automotive industry now, people are trying to do certain things of personalization, like say, you bought this car, therefore next time you come to the site, I'm going to show you these cars. Good practice, but car dealership websites are not Amazon. You don't come and buy a car the week after you've just bought one. Where personalization, I think, needs to be embraced is exactly this problem that we're talking about. We're going to find that electric car buyers have requirements or desires that ICE car buyers don't, and vice versa. And I think, as was mentioned earlier by Steve Rowe, there's a day job to do. You know, ICEs are a big, obviously the backbone of all businesses except the one we just heard of. So we need to have a solution, but we need to frame it in the context of it's for these people. This is for them, this is for them. So there was a study that came out of Poland, actually this year also, that showed that you can use artificial intelligence methods to work out the likelihood that somebody will buy an EV. So what this means for you is that you can have a fairly good idea when somebody comes to your website as to whether they're an EV buyer or not. That means that you can show them the EV buying journey and show somebody else the regular one, or a mix. Testing and data is the key. So we all sat down at AutoWeb with these models and these results and the transcripts, and we came up with a list of 15 questions to ask consumers. I apologize if it's quite small. Again, the full report is available after. But basically, it said, if buying an EV, I am more likely to buy it from a particular dealership if their dealership has this feature, and there were 15. Now, we asked 300 UK consumers completed this, and all of them had confirmed that they would consider an EV for their next car. So we're not asking those portion of the people that we don't mind about because they don't want an EV and it's too hard to convince them, or actually pointless to convince them, I suppose. If you're making money selling them the car that they want, why would you do anything else? Bit of stats. We've done some statistical tests on this that showed that it's a valid survey. Basically, people are not just going through it and answering yes to all of them, no to all of them. It's on a 7-point Likert scale, so strongly disagree to strongly agree. Where there were correlations, interestingly, people who wanted to see the full range of vehicles were also interested in lead times. But other than that, quite a variety. Because these people that filled out the surveys had confirmed that they were interested in buying an EV, we had to be careful of what's called positivity bias. So of all the things that we put forward, generally speaking, people agreed. And that's probably because they're good ideas, decent ideas. So what we did was we grouped all of the disagrees from strongly disagree, and somewhat disagree, and looked at which ones were there, in case there were things that we thought were good ideas but actually weren't. So the interesting thing about this is if you look at the 5 that are on here, we've got most disagreed with allowed me to buy a car online and have it delivered to me. So 13% disagreed, although 26% strongly agreed. Next one is about having expert video calls, then live chat, then reserve a car, and then video walk around. So what that data tells us is basically that the ones where people disagreed, we're probably looking at those audience of people who prefer to go into the dealership. Nothing particularly actionable there then, because we've got people who want those functionalities. Where the action comes in, I think, is in the most strongly agreed. So here we only look at strongly agreed, not just agreed. And these are the results. So in joint first, we have offered electric car specific after sales care, warranties and maintenance. Tied with provided a list of all electric vehicles available. So there we're addressing what's the range, what is the car. Provided details of where to charge an electric car locally and the costs. Allowed me to book a home charger installation online, and then allowed me to filter by monthly price on finance, which you might think would come in higher, but no. Obviously, it's based on this sample. We'll do more research. So yeah, very interesting topics to discuss. I don't know whether, in terms of the room, this is what you'd expect, but for us, nailing down that after-sales side of things, showing the range correctly, talking about lead times, and of course the home charger installation, all important things to look at. If you request the full report, there's some anecdotal data about differences by gender, age and income level. I say anecdotal because to be statistically valid, we need to interrogate those a little bit more. But those are all available in the full report. There is probably a suggestion that it does vary by those aspects at least, but we'll probably gather more data in future research. So if anybody wants a full copy, there's my email address, and thank you very much for listening.
One question from the floor, which definitely gets to the point, is just what needs to be done to make dealer websites slick for EV buyers. Can I just talk to you both as dealers? Could you just very briefly say, the size of the dealer group, and then what you're doing to promote CVs or to try and to max your EV business? So if you want to kick.
Of course. So we've got within Eden, we've got 24 sites that represent 7 different manufacturers. Many of them offer a alternative fuel, and most offer the full EV range. Within Eden, we've driven very hard getting the customers and the colleagues to actually experience and drive the vehicles. Our first port of call is actually for a courtesy car is to offer a full EV vehicle. Now that's had its challenges. The biggest one actually is for people that drive in manual cars to adjust to driving an automatic vehicle. But it's also had a huge amount of benefits because we are seeing a bigger proportion of our new car orders being electric vehicles. Because I think overcoming the perception of an EV is actually driving it and experiencing it, taking it home and plugging it in. And also understanding that the efficiencies are perversely the inverse of running a combustion engine. Because on a motorway, on a diesel, you don't use your brake, do you? Your miles per gallon increase by being fairly constant. Whilst with an electric vehicle, you tend to try and brake more, and around town you get better efficiencies than you would do on a motorway. So there's all those kind of intricacies that we've tried to drive for the team.
Fair enough. And Darren?
Darren Ardron, Managing Director, Perry's. So we've got 51 sites spread across the UK representing 10 brands. If I'm honest, I think we've been very successful in this last 2 years with EV. It's currently representing about 24% of all of our new car sales, EV and alternative fuel vehicles. We've done a lot of work internally to get to that level. We started probably 3 years ago now by sitting down and saying we actually needed a bespoke training course for EV because it was very different to ICE vehicles. And along with our team and some of them in here today, we put together a training course. We've now got the majority of sales staff through that training course. And then lots of other things similar to what James has said, really. We ensure that about 20% of all of our courtesy cars now are EV, try and encourage staff where possible to run EVs as company cars. And I think it's been about general awareness, really, across all the dealerships.
And given on what Martin was talking about in terms of the after sales, Martin was talking about using after sales and having targeted stuff to try and get customers. Did this ring true to you, or?
Yeah, and you know, James and I have got similar franchises, and so we're very familiar with how they work. But you know, some manufacturers have insisted on EV courtesy cars, and I think initially we all looked at that and thought, this is very expensive, this is a huge cost. But actually, it's been helping transform, because until you actually drive an EV, you don't know the experience of it. And you know, I went through it personally. I put my wife into an EV car. I made one mistake. In fact, I made two mistakes, actually, if I'm honest with you. The first mistake was I didn't tell her. That was the first mistake. But the second mistake I made was not really understanding about the life-changing experiences with an EV. And to me, and I've spoke to Martin about this, who works on our website, I think from a website point of view, I think it's about explaining actually how you have to adapt your life a little bit to drive an EV, because you know, you can just pull into a petrol station within 5 minutes, you're fueled and you're ready to go. It's very different with EV. And the fatal mistake I made was getting an EV and not having a home charger fitted. Big mistake, you know. Now I've done all that. So I think for me, from a journey point of view, it's about going through your life-changing experiences with an EV.
Yeah. And something going back to what Martin was saying, does it mean that EV sales need to be dealt with separately or in a different way from ICE? You know, should sales leads be handled in the same way as other website leads?
I think I do think they need to be dealt with differently, because I think the customers aren't experienced in the EV journey, if you like. They're not experienced in the excuse the pun, in the mechanics of the vehicle. They're not experienced in the charge and the overall process of the journey. And you know, Darren mentioned that his wife, mine too, is in an EV. But she's changed our habit to always drive on full. So we do plug it in every night. So in the morning it's always full. Even if she only does 10 miles, she'll still plug it in. Now in a combustion engine car, you wouldn't naturally do that, would you? If you're anything like me, you'd wait till the red line comes up and then pray that you see a BP garage down the road. So it is about changing behaviours, and with the sales team particularly, training is imperative, but they also need to have experienced the vehicle to understand
I've got a difficult question. Can you tell me what your biggest mistake was on the EV front? I mean, it's you,
Apart from not telling the wife.
Yeah, you can give it a body swear, but if you could, because I mean, you're a large dealer group, and there'll be smaller companies who maybe are getting into this a bit later.
Possibly. I came in on the tail end of one of the previous presentations, actually, and it was the chap talking about not involving after sales at that point. I think that's very true. I think we tend to sometimes leave after sales to the back of the queue, and it was probably training people front of house and not quite training some of our receptionists at the same level. That's an area I think we had to learn very quickly.
Yeah, and yourself?
In truth, probably going too quickly on the courtesy car EVs, right. Without doing the sufficient training. We thought it would be an easy transition. It's worked well for us now, but it's been a painful transition.
Yeah. Martin, if there was something you were to take away today, what's the biggest, you know, I mean, dealers are going to go away from this, and keep it simple. What's the top 3 things they should definitely do, even if they don't do anything else?
Well, I think to summarise sort of what's been said is that there is a segment of the market that is open to considering EVs, and I guess what the research suggests is that market has specific requirements. So try to have a strategy that's specifically for those, and as was mentioned by Darren, make the website journey answer their questions. I don't think it's there are some solutions online for some of these things, but I give an example, if I may, just be very quick, from one of the interviews that I recall. The lady had very specific questions about, if I go to Tesco to do my food shop, how many chargers are there, and are they generally available when I'm doing my food shop? So just having a map with chargers is not necessarily good enough to put your dealership ahead of others in terms of that level of knowledge. But I guess the good thing is dealerships will have a knowledge of the local area. So I think just having a strategy for those who are open to EVs. Yeah.
Okay. I've got a final question from the floor, and it's for Darren and James, what are you doing online to educate website visitors to interested in EVs?
I think it's a good question. I think one of the first slides that I saw was the different acronyms with whether it be BEV, FEV, hybrid, mild hybrid, REX, whatever other names. I think we've tried to simplify that, tried to put a video explanation, some verbal explanation, and our digital team that take the online inquiries can explain that to the customer fully, because a consumer coming into the market won't know what the difference is between a plug-in hybrid and a mild hybrid.
Don't care.
No.
Darren?
I think it's about keeping the content up to date, really. It's a very fast-moving area, isn't it? And if you leave it for a few weeks, it can be out of date. So I think for us, it's about keeping content up to date, whether it be via the web or via any form of social media channel that we use.
Yeah, okay. Just one final one on after sales, because you did say that you just didn't take it into account, but that's nearly always the way, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's not the web. It's is there anything, Martin? I don't know. Is there anything you want to add just on the after sales side to push that, or?
There is, as we saw from the research, the joint top issue was having after sales care plans, etc. on the website. There are solutions for offering service plans, etc. online. There appears to be a need for something electric specific. So it's trying to come up with that. I know it's very difficult with things like the cost of batteries, etc. But as I said right at the start, the specifics of how to implement that are probably these guys' strength. But what I can identify is there's a need for it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that about wraps us up for today. Thanks very much to the three of you. It was a great session.
Our presentation today was around how car dealer websites can best support EV car sales, and we were presenting some research, not in full, but people can request that by just sending us an email. Really around what consumers want from a website when it comes to buying EVs. And I think the key thing is that there's a portion of the market who are open to EVs and a portion of the market who have very negative perceptions at the moment. And that's going to change through time. But what we really want to do is give dealers some actionable insight into how they can get more of the EV market now. So we were presenting the results about that. And I guess from the survey that we did, the top kind of results were around things like after sales, seeing full vehicle range, things like this. So, yeah. Well, I think that there's so many statistics going around that it's difficult to pinpoint exactly. And there are some people, when you put statistics to them, for example, 49% of UK car buyers want to buy an electric vehicle is one that's actually been mentioned a bit today. And some people accept that, and some people come back with a strong no way, and reasons why. So, I think again it goes back to focusing on those. There are people who just want ICEs, and they have various requirements for doing that. So we need to continue to service that. That will become smaller in time as actions of OEMs and governments and what have you change perceptions, mandate things, for example. In terms of where we're at right now, there's a market that really wants to buy EVs, and they are struggling to get the information that they need. Perhaps part of the problem is that we're sort of treating all customers as one group, whereas there we have two clear segments: people who will consider an EV and people who just won't. Do you spend a lot of time trying to convert a person who has such negative perceptions into something else? They might get annoyed because they know the car they want. Why? But there are people who are open to it. They're on the fence, and dealerships need to, as you mentioned before about communication, explain what the vehicles are, how somebody will use the vehicle, and how it will be looked after in a very clear, slick way. And that's something that websites are designed to do, but it's tailoring that to the different audiences and segmenting them properly. you know, by the nature of my job, most people that I talk to are interested in generating sales through the web. So I can't talk too much about those that aren't exactly. There has been a push to improve EV information on the websites, franchise dealers particularly, some independents, you know, as well. I think it maybe needs to be done in a more considered way, less of a bolt on and more of a perhaps even separate strategy. I think that's where we probably need to see a bit of change, and probably will, because if you have, you know, a website that's set up for search filters and information that's for your general car buyer, we've had a lot of years to optimize that. You know, we know how to do that. With EV, we're still uncovering what's important, down to specifics. Obviously, we know broadly what's important, but the specific things. So it's separating that, looking at that audience, looking at the data and optimizing that to generate leads. I don't know how exactly to get people on board from a retail perspective who are not doing EV yet. I think as business people, they have a business to look after, and they have customers, and they make a decision for a reason. EV is inevitable. We can argue over timescales, what have you. The statistics now to show, you know, where the growth is. It seems to me that they will start to see there's that portion of the market grow, and it will affect them in their local areas, because of course I suppose it's partly down to where they're located as well. So how to get them on board? Well, I'm sure when they see the compelling figures, there will be. My passion, and I guess the purpose of our business, is to generate money for our clients through websites and digital marketing. So where we get a real buzz is when something is successful in that regard. So we're constantly innovating to try to find new ideas, test them, prove to people, prove to clients that we've tested this here, it works, or a client wants to test something. It's being adaptable and continually testing, and to do that you have to have a methodology of being able to deploy things in a sort of test environment. And then when that comes to fruition and it's widely adopted, of course it's brilliant. So, you know, that's what I strive for. Because my part of the whole journey is around digital, lead generation, online sales, etc. The operations aspects of the business is clearly a lot to discuss, and I love to educate myself there. But in truth, compared to some of the dealers, that's their area of expertise. For me, there are some interesting insights in terms of stock levels, what's coming in the future. But I think we will continue the conversation about what does this EV online journey look like. A lot of people have a lot of good ideas, and we all want it to be simple and answer all the questions and what have you that an EV buyer has, but it needs volume and data for us to test how that is going forward. So, you know, mission following this is to make online electric vehicle purchase even more tailored to the consumer, and therefore get them to choose that dealership to buy a car from, or a van.